Hello and good afternoon, everybody. This is Tom Galucci with the Mortgage Collaborative. It's just hitting 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific. I want to thank everybody for joining in for today's TMC Connect web broadcast, the state of mortgage ops recruitment. I'm going to give just a second here while our attendees filter in and we will get started. In the meantime, I'm going to go through just some general housekeeping rules for today's call for our attendees. So just as a quick reminder, whether you've dialed in or you're connected via your computer, all lines have been muted. That's done just to avoid any background noise in your area and to ensure that all of our attendees can hear today's presentation clearly. As a reminder, today's call is being recorded and will be available for playback. Instructions to access a copy of the recording as well as a copy of the presentation deck will be distributed to all registrants and attendees in a follow-up email that you should receive tomorrow. That said, we want these discussions to be as interactive as possible. So I would encourage our attendees, any questions that you have throughout the discussion, if you're live on the Zoom chat, please feel free to submit those. And how you do it? Well, you can submit your questions either via the chat box or the Q&A box, both of which are accessible on the bottom menu of your Zoom screen. And I'll see those on our end and be able to facilitate those questions with our discussion leader today. Quick shameless plug. For those of you that have not registered yet, TMC's inaugural virtual event, the 12 Days of TMC, is kicking off actually next Tuesday, December the 1st, and running all the way through Friday, December the 18th. So we've got 12 half days of content in store, Tuesday through Friday each week, kind of bookended with both celebrity as well as industry-specific keynote speakers, and then wedged in the middle, some really insightful and actionable content in our breakout sessions, as well as a full slate of preferred partner-led lightning showcase, both demonstrations as well as case study presentations. So should be a fantastic event, ton of content for you and your entire team. So if you haven't registered already, highly encourage you to connect with your TMC point of contact for more details. So shameless plug aside, let's go ahead and jump into today's discussion. Helping lead our subject matter expert, got with me President and founder of Full Circle Placements, from TMC's preferred partner in the recruiting and placement field for the mortgage industry. Dan, how's it going?
What's up? How are you?
I'm doing well. It's always great to see you, even if it has to be virtually. Just got a quick frame up for our attendees. Dan was gracious enough to previously pen for us a guest blog, I believe it was late September, along the lines of the same topic, kind of chronicling some of the trends that we were seeing as far as average salary amounts for new hires on the ops side, specific to processing, underwriting, as well as closing. And in addition to that, Dan brought to the table really a lot of, I thought, really insightful insights from his perspective of what he's seeing on the recruiter side, as far as mining for top talent, retaining your own top talent, and how to win some of those residual offer battles that can take place. So we wanted to have this discussion today to dig a little deeper with Dan and allow him to share some of his insights with our members here at the Collaborative. So Dan, really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to help lead today's discussion with us.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. I look forward to having this discussion, and any way I can provide value and kind of give the landscape that I see. I think it's beneficial for everybody right now who's trying to staff up, basically.
Oh man, that is the truth. Like, we crack up. We're talking to our members about potential partner solutions that they might be interested in. The first thing you hear is, can you hire me like 50 underwriters or a whole slate of processors yesterday? Like, well, bring you over to my man Dan. So the timing couldn't be more perfect, as we're still wrapping up the year and having record volumes. So on that note, let's go ahead and dive into the discussion. So for attendees, we're going to spend some time talking through recruitment challenges, some potential solutions out there, as well as retention strategies to help keep your top talent. But for starters, I wanted to turn it over to Dan to be able to, kind of provide some recent stats through his findings on some salary averages in top ops roles today.
Basically, what I did here is we took our last 30 days. We probably have a total of 35 to 40 offers that we looked at between processors, closers, and underwriters to formulate what is the average salary range and bonus and any other additional comp that's involved. And so over those offers, we're looking at, processors obviously here on the screen, $65,400 is the average base pay that we're seeing. Usually it's hourly with overtime. And then the average person's getting $70 a file on that production bonus. And not everybody's offering sign-on bonuses, but when they do, it typically is right at 5K. There's not much, I don't rhyme or reason. They just say, we'll give you 5K sign-on. Closers, we're looking at 65,250 average base salary, which is actually down from the article that I had put out. So that was interesting whenever we were running these numbers. And then, production bonus, it varies depending on the lender, but on average, we came up with $20 or $25 per file. We've seen it up to $50 per file for, a certain type of loan, but typically 25 a file is a good rule of thumb. And then we are seeing a 5K sign on, especially right now. Closers have been pretty tricky lately for a good retail closer who knows Encompass or is doing X amount of loans per month and has a good work history. So those will, the higher the quality, it'll push it up a little bit, but that's kind of what we're seeing on closers. And then underwriters.
So, and a quick question to that, are you seeing, higher salary rates at all, for those that have like direct Encompass experience versus?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I guess there should be an asterisk here with throwing out these salary ranges. Yeah, the average was 60 something $1,000, but for senior level processor, senior level closer, we're still seeing that 70, 75K on base because they're knocking out 100 plus files a month, or they're, they have Encompass and you need Encompass and they have a solid work history. And so the more of those pieces that you add, the higher the comp range goes. And so we've seen closers getting offered 57K, but maybe they come from a title company and have worked with, and there's some training that has to be done. So there is a wide spectrum. It's hard to, it's almost like a fingerprint, but it's hard to not throw out an average without showing both sides of the spectrum, I guess.
Well, and I would imagine it gets a little more complicated as we transition over to what you're seeing for underwriters.
Yeah, so underwriters are crazy because there's different levels to underwriters, and conventional underwriters are way up. I remember a couple of years ago, I think we were at like 75K. There's no crazy bonuses or anything, but conventional underwriters right now, the average that we're seeing, and we are bringing on quite a few of these, is right around 92,000, 91,750. We're not seeing as many sign-on bonuses, but what we're seeing, and I want to add this in there, is the nice thing about bringing on a conventional underwriter is they have room to grow. And so you see, hey, we won't do a sign-on, but in the offer letter, we'll say, we'll sponsor your DE, or we'll get you a SAW, or, we're telling them basically they're going to be able to grow into a FHA underwriter or VA underwriter. And so they're all on board with that because they have that growth opportunity. So they don't necessarily need a sign-on. If you do see one, it's low, it's maybe $5,000. But that's the conventional underwriter. Diving into DE, this is when you see a big uptick on salary. The FHA underwriters, they're getting right around 110K average. And by the way, this is my fault. I messed up the sheet. It says production bonus, 10,800 is the sign-on bonus. So my apologies there. Not very good at these, I guess. But sign-on bonus, you're almost at $11,000 on average. So really what we're seeing is between 10 and 15K on those sign-ons. And closer to 10. We've seen some 7,500, some 5Ks. So it brought us to 10.8 there. And then they're getting a production bonus or overtime, just depending on the lender, whatever their bonus program looks like. And then the DE, SAR, and LAPS, they're very, very hard to find right now. They're getting substantial base salaries, and this is just an average. So if you look at our top person that we've placed is around 135, but we've also, and I want to throw this in there, we've lost people. These are only people that we've placed. We've lost people to counter offers in the 140, 150K base salary range. And so this is just our numbers. This isn't necessarily the entire industry. This is like a realistic viewpoint of what people are, small to mid-sized lenders like we work with are bringing people on for. And the average base is right around 125. The sign-on bonus is here, it's 13.3, but we're seeing a lot of $15,000 sign-on bonuses to get them to an all-in comp on that first year of 140. It seems like every underwriter we talk to wants to be between 130 and 140 when we have that initial conversation. And then again, they'll get the production bonus and overtime. Varies depending on the lender. And I will say, like, one candidate we talked to, just in overtime and bonus plus her base, by the time she hit October, she was already at $220,000 all in pay. So she was, she's going to hit $260,000 or something. So something to think about as you start to open your requisitions or wonder, why am I not getting underwriters or processors or closers? Start with maybe what's your budget and what's realistic. So.
No, that's a great point. We spend so much time kind of looking at like the average numbers for that salary figure or, any sign-on bonus. But, I think to your point, what can be lost in the shuffle is how much additional income is coming in based on overtime requirements or, files per month too, just based on the volume these lenders are seeing.
Yeah, for sure.
You beat me to the punch on the, I was going to ask you about that, listing out your averages here, but if you were seeing some higher end offer figures that were going well above the average, and clearly that is the case. One question I had for you on here, with the sign-on bonuses, are you seeing them at all tied to like a certain time frame commitment, like 6 months or a year to receive that sign-on?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of the sign-on bonuses, they get their first, within 30 days, they get the first chunk of it. And then within another 90 days or 180 days, they get the second chunk of it. You can break it out however you want. We're seeing different ways to do it. And if they do get it all up front, because some people request that, they're definitely locking these people in, right? Like, hey, I'm going to give you this money, but I want you locked in 6 months. I'm seeing a lot of 6 months, but I'm seeing a lot of year-long commitments before they can leave voluntarily. And honestly, I think these people are getting a little greedy at this point. But I like the sign-on bonus because it locks them in, and the money chasers will be locked in. You give them 15 grand on a sign-on bonus, and they have to pay that back if they leave. So, if you're going to get top quality who wants to chase the money, that's fine, but you're stuck with me basically, and so I think it's fair to put that verbiage in that offer letter.
No, that makes a lot of sense too. Obviously, trying to avoid salary chasers or a continual influx of new operational talent. So it's a great point.
Yeah. So with this, I wanted to throw out some additional statistics, and it's really why are they able to get this kind of money right now, right? And so if you look at the statistics, and this is based on Indeed.com, it's super easy. Anybody listening can go out and search it. So we do what's called a Boolean search, and basically we plug in keywords and it spits out either job openings or candidates. It's just a way to recruit. And so underwriter and mortgage, if you did that search today, there's 8,120 jobs open within the last 30 days. But if you flip that around and you go to Indeed's job board where you can source resumes and see candidates who have updated their resumes and are interested in making a move, there's only 926 underwriters who are qualified who've updated their resume. So that's a substantial problem with the lack of available talent. And when I say available, I mean people willing to update their resume and start interviewing. And a lot of the times the people on job boards aren't even that great a talent. So this is just a snapshot. And if you run through processors, there's 9,600, 9,700 openings in the last 30 days, and there's only 1,300 candidates available. And closers, I was actually surprised by because they're pretty hard to find right now. But that's almost a 50% ratio. But the other two are just extremely difficult, and there's a ton of openings out there. And so I guess that would bring me to my next slide, unless you have questions here, with the challenges that we're facing because of this and because of and I guess the reason why the salary ranges are so high.
No, I mean, honestly, I'm just kind of taken back by the statistics, especially on the processor and underwriting side, the fact that, there's maybe 20% of, if you're finding all the qualified candidates to fit the roles open right now, and I think the most surprising thing to me about that, not that there's not the need out there, but that there's so many openings out there in comparison to qualified candidates, especially when we're seeing much more of an uptick from lenders within the network or just industry wide looking at like outsourced fulfillment options too for their operational roles. So
Yeah.
that was an eye-catching stat. Well, great figures to kind of review, and we'll have this all accessible in the follow-up to our attendees too. Wanted and kind of pivot to discussing some of the challenges I think are probably relatable to why there's so many openings versus qualified candidates, and kind of talk about, what's probably very real right now to lenders and recruiters alike, as far as trying to attract top ops talent. So I'll let you kind of dive into some of the top challenges that you're seeing.
For sure. So, the first one, ops people are busy, I mean, they're working all this extra overtime. They're making good money. And so you couple those two together, and do they really have time to take a call from a recruiter? Do they have time to take a call from a CEO or a president of a mortgage company? I mean, right now they're busy. They feel secure because of how busy they are. And so taking our calls is not a huge priority, like it has been in the past. And, couple that with, that means we're becoming white noise, basically. We talk to candidates all the time, and they'll say, you're the 10th person to call me today or this week, or, and so they're getting calls constantly. And if you go back to those statistics of, the job openings to available candidates, that's why, people are desperate for the talent, and there's not enough people to satisfy, the openings. And so now you have constant calls, constant interactions with these people, and we're just becoming white noise. They're they're basically, another recruiter, like, don't worry, if I don't take this call, somebody will call me tomorrow, right? And and then jumping in even further, what we saw this year, which was, makes sense, is there are people that will chase money, and there are people that will chase certain situations such as growth to get their DE if they're a conventional underwriter. And so the people who were open to making a move based on money or based on, management or whatever was going on with their current situation, they kind of already made their move. Like, they ended up packing their bags and going to a new company already this year. And so what it leaves you with to try to recruit from is a very shallow pool of people who are very loyal to their employers, the people that have worked as underwriters or processors or closers for 10 plus years or 5+ years. And those are really, really good candidates. They're the best candidates, but it's very hard to get them to move. And so you have this challenge where, everybody that was going to move has moved. So that's one of the challenges that we for sure face. And, anybody that wants to move to the next one, they can go anywhere they want. They could walk down the street and say, hey, I'm an underwriter. My boss made me upset. Are you guys hiring? Yeah, absolutely. We'll take an underwriter, or we'll take a processor. So especially if they're good. So, they can go anywhere they want. They don't necessarily need us to call them. If they want to make a move, they're kind of able to manage their own process at this point, or they move to be with a friend or something like that. So, and then finally, I put the golden ticket. We call it the golden ticket, which is basically, if you put out the offer first, you're kind of screwed, right? So you interview a candidate, you give them an offer, they accept. Well, now they have that 2 or 3 week window before they get started where they're still getting those 10 calls a day, right? No, thank you. I've accepted another offer. Oh, you did? Well, what does that offer look like? Well, it's 110. Oh, I'll give you 115 and a sign on. And so it's almost like the person getting the last offer out is the person that's winning the race, which is unfortunate. But that's what we're seeing. And they're using that offer not only just for better offers from external lenders that are offering them jobs, but they're using that offer and they're taking it to their current employer and they're saying, hey, look what I got. What are you going to do? And they're going to give it to them 100% of the time. So anyways, so that's the challenges that we face on a daily basis right now and what we've seen over the last few months that I think are important.
Yeah, it's funny. It's all too real right now with historic volumes. And to your point, if somebody is been at their current employer for multiple years, they could simply look in their inbox, maybe in their personal email, and they've probably found some form of outreach from another lender in town or a recruiter looking to help them find their next opening. It's interesting. We always see these challenges kind of on the originator side as far as
Okay. Yeah.
the offers going back and forth. And it's funny to see that pendulum turn down to the ops roles too, where they've, for the first time in my history in the industry, have that leverage, to take back internally or kind of shop that offer across town.
Yeah. No, it's definitely their time to shine, I guess.
That's right. Well, cool. I think we've laid out some really good challenges. So naturally, I want to kind of segue to some potential solutions out there that can help, lenders, recruiters alike, in trying to win top talent.
Yeah. So there's a couple things on here that I might throw in as well. But the first thing, you can't recruit with just money anymore because the people that were chasing money, as we discussed, have already moved for money, right? So you need to find a real motivator. What value are you bringing to this candidate that's going to change their situation, make them happier? And for example, let's say you're a very small lender and you're not built out like, Quicken Loans, but use that to your advantage. Find the candidates who are working at a Quicken Loans or who are working at a very large mortgage lender and say, hey, listen, this is more of a family feel. You can get all your answers right away. You can call the CEO or the president. We're always here for you. And so use that as your value proposition. And on the flip side, if you're a very large lender and you want to pull from a small lender, you can use that. Hey, we have all these training resources. We have Encompass admins. We have all these different pieces in place that make your job easier. And so you have to use that value more than just the financial piece. And you have to find the right person who wants that too. So, grabbing somebody from a small lender who understands, they can call the CEO at any time. You can't really use that as a value proposition if you're a small lender, because it's the same situation. So look for those candidates that you can kind of change their situation a little bit and help them with some things that they're missing out on. So that's one thing. Another thing, this is, as a recruiter, this is a pet peeve, I guess you could say, but make it as easy as possible on the candidate. I mean, we have LinkedIn nowadays. You don't need an updated resume. If hey, they work at a retail mortgage lender, they're an underwriter, and we don't have like all the bullet points of everything they do on a daily basis, that's okay. Don't ask them to update a resume because that's just how you get ghosted. They don't have time to put an hour into updating their resume when you're the one calling them, trying to get them on the phone, trying to get them interested. And then throughout the interview process, instead of doing 2 or 3 interviews, you're going to lose the candidate throughout that process. So why not get 3 people on that one interview, 3 hiring managers or 3 decision makers within your company on that one interview versus having the candidate go through 3. And finally, make yourself available. The clients that I have that land the most top talent, they are making themselves available. I have a client right up the street here, and he will literally lock himself in his office and he will make calls to candidates based on their schedule and make himself available. And that's why he is fully staffed, is because he's not trying to say, hey, I can't make 2 o'clock. I have something going on. He's making hiring a priority. And if you make it a priority, they're going to be a lot happier because it's just easier for them to get on the phone with you and you're working around their schedule. So um, that's, I think that's key. And then if you make an offer, give them your best offer first. And it's hard to do this, right? You're trying to you're trying to give an offer that makes sense for both parties. But if you talk to a candidate up front and you say, hey, what's it going to take to get you on board? And they say, I want $70,000. And you're like, oh, we'll give you $67,000. Like why waste your time with that? Because they're not going to be happy to get started, even if they do take the offer, and they're just going to shop that until they get the 70K, and only do this in, within your budget. I'm not saying go out and just like give crazy amounts of money, but I think that if you're super transparent and you really give them what they're asking for within a reasonable amount first, they're going to feel appreciated, and that's more likely to turn into a placement, I guess, for you. So those are 3 solutions that I've seen work very well.
And like that's a great point too, because you're only spending more time going back and forth with the candidate trying to haggle over that salary amount, especially if the two sides aren't necessarily that far apart. You're bullish on that candidate, why not make the move there too? And that's a great point you made before on just consolidating the interview process. If you're going to have 3 internal parties that you're going to want to meet with the candidate prior to, why not have that all be part of one elongated discussion as opposed to trying to coordinate schedules, to your point, find multiple separate times and risk the potential of them losing the candidate in the process.
For sure.
So you put together this, which I thought was a really intriguing strategic way to kind of look at, how you're prioritizing, I guess, from a lender standpoint on the attributes that are most important to you through making, hires in this current environment. So I want to give you the opportunity just to kind of go a little bit more in depth on the triangle that we're seeing on the screen and kind of explain that methodology out.
Yeah, for sure. So I think whenever you have this lack of, talent that's available, you definitely have to sacrifice one of these 3. So you have cost, you have speed, you have quality. And, you can't have all 3. You can't have a quality person in a short period of time for cheap, right? Or you can have somebody fast and cheap, but they're not going to be quality. So I just wanted to touch on this because whenever you open that requisition up, or you're wondering why you don't have any talent in a short period of time, there's usually one of these that's the missing piece. And you just have to make that adjustment. Which one do I want to sacrifice? And to speak to this a little bit, right now, in terms of quality, there is an opening to bring on decent quality fairly quickly at a decent price. And that's grabbing people who were laid off in 2018 and exited the industry. Now, is there some training involved? Yeah, but we've been pretty successful with finding people who had long mortgage careers in the industry. And then they left in 2018 when they got laid off. And now we're trying to bring them back. And yeah, there's a little bit of training, but for the most part, they've done it 10, 15 years. And so we're getting them for prices from 2 years ago, which is great. And we're getting them quickly, and they're fairly strong quality. So that's one area we've been successful in with finding it, with kind of trying to fit this triangle together without sacrificing too much. So.
And have you seen to that point, and I've heard it anecdotally from some of our members, but similar type strategy on maybe ops talent that's recently retired from the industry, and knowing that there's quality there and it's just a matter of training up to speed on recent updates. Have you seen kind of an influx on that side of people who not only got laid off but retired from the industry, potentially being moved back in?
Yeah, so I'll be completely honest with you. We don't see that a lot because we're not necessarily going after the retired candidates from a recruiting agency perspective. But I do think that is out there. We have talked to candidates who have said, hey, I retired, but wait, I hear all this money's to be made, and so they are interested in seeing what that last little year and a half run looks like. And so, those aren't candidates that we've necessarily been sending, but I definitely think that's happening.
Yeah, and that's a great point too, because as I think about it, it more or less ends up being related to like kind of friends and family of the company along those lines, where it's not so much of a structured recruitment process, but just making a call to somebody that or have that kind of personal relationship. Say, hey, you want to come back for 20 hours a week or what have you.
Yeah.
That's a lot of sense. Okay.
For sure. And actually, this is what I was going to add to the solutions was you kind of hit the nail on the head there with one of the solutions is talk to your current staff, and do they know anybody that was in the industry that they liked working with, whatever, or and give, if you're going to give a recruiter a fee, you might as well give a bonus to internal employees for referral purposes, so use your current staff as a recruiting tool as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Typically, if you've got your own internal staff, they're going to fit kind of the character work ethic mode that you're looking for in a potential candidate. Likely, people in their circle, there's a good propensity, are going to have those same attributes. Why not mine from that internal pool and incentivize them for, bringing their
Right.
quality talent back to you?
Yeah, 100%.
So, it was great to kind of talk through the strategy piece on, how you're thinking about what you're prioritizing when getting on the recruitment trail. I want to spend some time just talking a little bit more in depth on retention strategies for the other side of the coin for lenders trying to make sure that their cabinet's not left bare from their top talent going elsewhere in the industry.
Yeah, so I didn't throw too much on there because I think that I threw a creative one up here, but I think the key is just transparency and communication throughout that process. So when people put in their notice, they've signed the offer, they want to join, so they put their notice in, and now they have that 2 to 3 week window where it's kind of like blank space, right? Like, am I doing the right things? Do I really have a job at the end of this tunnel? Or, and so if you're not actively following up with them and checking in and just saying, hey, how's it going? Or do you have your equipment? I always get equipment questions, always. Like, they're always like, do you know when my equipment's going to be here? So just doing those follow-ups, they're so easy. They're 5-10 minute phone calls, checking in. How are things going? We're super excited to have you. And just maybe twice a week until they get started, holding their hand through that start date is huge. And that's going to land you a lot of people who have an offer, who have signed and are expecting to start. But we are losing a lot of candidates throughout that process, right? And I'm sure some people listening have lost candidates where they have an offer, they've signed, and then all of a sudden they're gone. They've ghosted us. What happened? And a lot of times it's because you didn't follow up and you weren't aware of those offers, those other offers that were on the table. And if you tell them during these follow-ups, like, hey, listen, if any other lender contacts you, just let us know. And they may come and say, hey, I did get another offer. It was another $5,000. I'm going to go that route. Maybe that's your opportunity. You've already built a relationship. You've told them how excited you are to have them on board. And now you can deal with that counter offer that they're dealing with. So, so that's one way. But then I threw in gifting because I have one client that does this, and it literally works every time. I don't know if it's psychological or what, but as soon as somebody signs an offer letter, they send out a gift. It's maybe AirPods or something small, could be a flower basket. And they just say, hey, thank you so much. We're super excited to have you on board. And, here's a gift for you. And for some reason, I guess psychologically, they feel, hey, they did something for me, so I'm going to stick with my word and I'm going to move forward with them. And so that's worked really well for one of the clients that hires a lot of people. And so I just wanted to throw that in there because I do like creative solutions that kind of separate you from other lenders. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely important. Like, we've seen it too, just with our members in keeping those lines of communication with their existing staff, especially in this remote setting where you don't have that, interpersonal interaction within the
Exactly.
office. Just, dedicating time to calling out to everybody at least once a week, just for a check-in, just to make sure everybody's doing okay, family's doing all right. It makes all the sense in the world to do the same with your on the recruitment side too, because you're right, there is that dead space between accepting the offer and the start date. And in a remote environment, if that interaction is relatively minimal, because we're all so busy, it's a great opportunity to continue to pump them up and make them feel great about the company that they're about to join.
Yeah, for sure. Then on the flip side, so there's retention of the candidates that you're trying to get through your recruiting funnel, but then you have these retention fights and wars going on with your current staff. They're getting the 10 calls a day. I guarantee it. They're maybe fielding a couple calls to see what's out there. And so how can you get in front of this? And one of the first things I threw on here was to check the job board. So one of the things that we do for our clients is, we're always recruiting. We're always looking, whether it's Indeed, Career Builder, whatever job site, you can see who updated their resume in the last, 24 hours, 7 days, 30 days, whatever. And so if we see a candidate that pops up that's with one of our clients, we let our client know and it's not to tell on the candidate. We just say, hey, listen, we know you really can't afford to lose another person right now because you really need these ops staff. This person updated their resume. You may want to have a conversation with them and see if you can get in front of them, because they're going to get hired very quickly. We've seen people get hired within 4 hours of updating their resume. Like they update it, we call them and they're like, yeah, I just took an offer. And we're like, you just updated, so it's crazy. But if you can get in front of that and you can have those conversations, because some people are just scared to have that conversation with their manager, ask for a couple extra bucks. Some people see it as taboo to ask their manager for more money, I guess. So that's one thing that we've been doing that's helped retain a lot of internal staff for some of our clients. And it's super easy to do. I mean, if you get on a job board, you can just type in your company name and you're going to be able to see everybody who has updated their resume. So super simple there. Again, I threw send gifts on there. I'm not trying to get everybody to just start sending gifts out like it's Christmas or anything, but I do think it's important to show appreciation. And then going back to the psychological piece of, hey, they just sent me, a thank you card or whatever it might be. I think it goes a long way. I think that they get that loyalty, or you get that loyalty back that may be gone because everybody's working remotely. They're not getting that interaction on a daily basis. But whenever you send them something as simple as a thank you card, I think that you kind of get some of that loyalty back. So
yeah, and even real quick, one of the things like you mentioned, which I find relatable this time of year with no in-person events, is most people out there have like a litany of branded swag that is just sitting there with nobody to give it to. So why not send some tchotchke or branded items out to your new hires? Makes them feel instilled about the role that they're taking on, and harder to ghost you at the altar, if you will.
Yeah.
In that time.
Yeah. So just the appreciation, that's where you're going to get loyalty, and that's where you're going to get people who said, yes, I'm going to come on board, to actually come on board. They kind of feel they owe it to you because you did something nice for them. So, and then take care of your long-term employees. So, those employees we were talking about earlier, they've been at the same company for 5 years, 10 years, whatever it might be. Let's say they're a processor. Maybe they're sitting at a $55,000 base just because they didn't get the increases, like somebody changing jobs would get right now, So how do you take care of them so that they feel, inclined to stay with you or not take the phone calls from other lenders? And so that's why I threw on here a retention bonus. And we're seeing this work for a lot of our clients. To your point earlier, when you lock them in, hey, they're a $55,000 base. The average person's getting $65,000. We're going to give you a $7,500 retention bonus. Just stick with us for a year. You know what I mean? So this is very similar to a sign-on bonus or a retention bonus at notice. You're just getting in front of it, and getting in front of them leaving, I think, is the most important, because you don't want one foot out the door. You want to kind of try to lock your internal staff in, especially the good people that you really need on your team. in as best possible right now.
Yeah, and you're giving them incentivizer to, to stick with it through challenging times and long hours. So that's
Yeah.
a newer one that I've seen too, and it makes all the sense in the world. To your point, to get out in front of, the potential difficult conversations, keep them, keep them in house while they're happy.
Right.
Awesome. So let's, talk about maybe some kind of takeaway suggestions before we get to the Q&A portion that our attendees on the line today could put to practice in their shops.
Yeah, I mean, I'll dive in here. So, with how hard it is to recruit right now, with the lack of talent available, unless you have somebody dedicated to recruiting, it's going to be very hard to get top talent. I know that, there were some questions that were sent over, and a lot of it had to do with top talent. I want top talent. Everybody does want top talent, but who's dedicated to bringing that top talent on? And so whether it's bringing on an internal recruiter or using a third party recruiting firm, it doesn't have to necessarily be full circle. I mean, we'd love it, but at the end of the day, you need to find people. And so unless you have somebody dedicated, it's going to be a very long process, and it's going to be very hard to find people because your job postings, and this kind of parlays into the next one, your job postings aren't going to be doing the job that they need to be doing whenever you have 8,000 openings and 1,000 available candidates. There's just too much noise there. And so I put on here, one thing you can do if you are going to rely on job postings is job postings are a lot different than a job description. Don't just post a job description. An underwriter should know what an underwriter does. Like, you know what I mean? What is that value that your company brings? And so how do you relay that in your job posting? Your job posting's goal is to get a good person to apply for the job. And so make it fun, make it about the value that you bring, make it about the perks of working at your company. Don't necessarily make it about the job description. You can always send that to them upon request, but as I mentioned, I think a processor knows what a processor does. If they're good and you actually want that person, they know what they need to do in that job role, which is nice about the roles that we recruit for. But to me, a job posting is your marketing, your branding towards candidates. So I think that's important. And then when you do get them on the phone, educate them. What's the market going to look like a year and a half? I know you're getting $150,000 base salary. Are you going to get that forever? Because if rates go up, what happens? And volume slows down. And so we've talked to a lot of candidates, and they do hear us out. Some just say, you know what, I've been in this industry for 30 years and I'm used to layoffs, so I'll take the money while I can. But a lot of them are saying, hey, you know what, I don't want to be the highest person on staff. I understand that that's what happens. And you're right, times are good right now, but what's a realistic long-term salary range? And so just by educating them and talking to them off the ledge of wanting this crazy pay that their friend just got down the street, I think it goes a while for you. So, and then if you have talked to candidates, try to recycle all the candidates you've talked to in the last 12, 24 months. Pick those resumes back up, give them a call and say, hey, how's it going? And if they've recently moved within 2 to 4 months, they're going to know, like, is the grass really greener, or did they sell me on a bill of goods or whatever? And so you can dive in and have that conversation. Are you happy with your with the job change? And honestly, a lot of people aren't, because they worked for 3 or 4 years at one place. They had one process. They were promised something. They go over there. It doesn't happen. And now they're like, wait a second. I don't like these people. I have a bad taste in my mouth. I'll go anywhere but here, So it's good to kind of recycle those old candidates that you might have talked to in previous years, just because you don't know what they're up to. And it's an easy way for you to get access to qualified candidates.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, it's something that I've seen plenty of lenders kind of put into practice too, just, keeping that pipeline open from people they've talked to and maybe went a different route in the past, but they thought were qualified. To your point, I mean, there's been so much fluctuation over the past year, or, to your other point, people get into a new home and the grass isn't greener on the other side, and suddenly you've got a wide open year again. And maybe it's the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are all things that we try to do internally as well. You know, we have a candidate database that produces candidates all the time that we haven't talked to in 6 months or a year. So
Great point. Well, at this point, now we're getting close to the end of the discussion. So just a reminder for our attendees, if there's any questions that you have for Dan, feel free to input those via the chat or the function, and I'll be able to verbalize those on your behalf. Take a look at what I've got here. Have you seen the surge of inquiries for staffing on the ops side slow down a bit in the fourth quarter as we're kind of wrapping up 2020?
So what we've seen, one thing that we do every month is we type in mortgage and FHA, because a lot of the clients that we work with want candidates that have FHA experience. So we throw FHA as our search term, and it spits out how many jobs are available across the industry. That does include loan officers, and it does include underwriters, processors, post closers, whatever. But so we take that number every month, and we've actually seen it's not growing as fast. So I guess you could say the growth is slowing down, but it's still growing. So it's not, and it's definitely maintaining the staffing levels of, 2 or 3 months ago with what needs are. But it looks like 3.4% growth over the last 30 days is what we're looking at. So it's still growing, but I think that at one point over the summer, it probably went up, 3,000 jobs a week or something. So, it's hard to say that it's not. I think it's slowing, the growth of it is slowing, but I think we have a pretty good balance in terms of where we've been and where we're at today. So.
Well, like to your point, I mean, even if it fell off a bit, based on the earlier stats that we saw, there's still a gluttony of open positions and not enough candidates to fill them. So
that's the key.
Out.
Yeah, that's the key metric, right? Like, it doesn't matter how many openings there are. It matters how many openings there are to how many people there are to fill those. And if there's more candidates than there are job openings, then it's a employer's market, right? But if there's more job openings than there are candidates, then it's a candidate driven market, and then they can start demanding crazy pay like they are. So
using your crystal ball, your imaginary crystal ball, any insights or expectations as to kind of how that trend will fluctuate as we get into the early portion of 21?
It's so hard. I've been trying to figure this out. I'm not a great predictor, but I looked and it looked like refi volume would be down around 50% from where it was in 2020. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but we'll find out. And then, the purchase market's set to explode, they say. So it's how much offset is that, and I still think that when you're talking about top talent, there's always going to be a shortage of top talent. If you're talking about mortgage talent in general, the B players, the C players, I still think that there's going to be some heavy hiring needs going into the first quarter, second quarter. And I think it might start slowing down around August is what I'm thinking of next year. So I don't know why August. I just, that's the feeling that I have.
I mean, it makes sense too, as you have that refi fluctuation back into a spring buying season, a more purchase-centric marketplace. Obviously, volumes you would think stay relatively steady through the summertime, and have the eventual more cyclical fall off towards the end of the year.
Yeah, so that's what we're planning on. That's what we are, hoping for, and I think that right now we have enough work to to substantiate that. So we'll see what happens.
And so I've got a question here, a little off topic, but I guess this was from a lender perspective. If they're looking to add an internal recruiter to their staff in-house, do you know of like any training resources out there in the marketplace that you'd recommend for being able to get a new internal recruiter up to speed?
Yeah, so I definitely think right now is a great time to have a recruiter on staff. We go back to having dedicated recruiting support, but not everybody's a mortgage recruiter. Not everybody understands the process of finding underwriters or processors or closers. And so in terms of training, that's one thing we're talking about in-house is I can't support every client that's coming our way right now, and So, but we have gone in and we've done in-person trainings or Zoom trainings with internal recruiters who maybe they recruited aerospace and now they're trying to figure out this mortgage game and, what's that look like? And so, not to plug myself here, but if, training, we can definitely help with that at Full Circle if you wanted like some in-depth training. But if you ever had any questions about it, feel free to reach out. I'm not going to charge for some advice, over an email. But in terms of learning the mortgage industry, unless you have somebody dedicated to training them, I think we're a good option there.
Well, I'll plug you, Dan. You've been a great partner for us at the collaborative and supporting our members and our preferred partners alike with some of the recruitment efforts on the sales side, technology side too. So Dan's very modest. I'm gonna toot his horn for him. Full Circle's been great for us to partner with, and I definitely would recommend it for anybody who's either looking to pick Dan's brain on strategy or looking for some support and staffing up.
Cool. No, I appreciate that.
Anytime. Well, that's all the questions I've gotten queued. I know we're getting towards the top of the hour, so we'll look to wrap things up at this point. I want to thank you again for your time and for the insights. This has been extremely insightful. I appreciate you, giving some more in-depth perspective for the benefit of our members out here. And, we'll definitely make sure in our follow-up with the copy of the deck from today's presentation, we'll also provide a link out to Dan's prior blog post on the Mortgage Collaborative blog site, just around his initial findings back in September. And it may be a good compare and contrast versus some of the updated salary statistics that you provided us today.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Well, Dan, appreciate it as always. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving, as does everybody on the line. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the future.
Cool. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Dan.